You're listening to the Tomorrow Society podcast. Hey, thanks for joining me here on the latest episode of the Tomorrow Society podcast. I'm your host, Dan Heaton. Today's guest is Tony Cortese, who directed a film called Dreamfinders, and I really enjoyed this movie. It's a documentary that basically looks at bloggers and podcasters, basically Disney professionals who don't work for Disney but have moved to Orlando to pursue their passion. And beyond just looking at the Disney experts and fans, it's also a really cool look just at what makes us fans of Disney World. Why do people keep going? And there's also some beautiful time-lapse footage, and I think Tony did a great job with this movie. So I really enjoyed getting the chance to talk to Tony and learn a little bit more about what went into the movie and his views on Disney and his perspective. So I'm really looking forward to having you hear this interview. Before I get to the interview, I would love if you guys could go to iTunes, give me a quick rating or review. It really helps to expand the show, get more people to hear it, and also to get great guests like Tony. So let's get right to it. Here's my conversation with Tony Cortese. All right. Well, my guest today is Tony Cortese, who directed the new documentary Dreamfinders, which is about professional kind of bloggers and podcasters who've moved down in Orlando, kind of living out the Disney dreams. So, Tony, thanks for being on the podcast.
All right, Dan, how are you? I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. Well, Tony, I will say you are right now in Disney's Hollywood Studios, which I'm very jealous of that you are at the parks as we speak.
Well, I figured, what better way to kind of get in the mood to talk Disney than to be in one of the Disney parks. And, I have not yet seen the new Star Wars fireworks with the added projection show. So I'm here tonight to watch that. And I figured, what better way to talk Disney than to be here kind of in the nest, as it were be.
Well, yeah, this is my first time I've talked to someone who's actually been live in the parks. So this is exciting. And you wisely avoided the Frozen Ever After craziness of the day. So I think you're in the right place.
Yeah, I was thinking about that kind of today. I'll make sure that I get a fast pass for that when I try it, because they said the wait time for that was about 3 hours. So
Yeah.
that's definitely, I'm not waiting 3 hours.
Yeah, even if it looks great, but so I want to talk to you about your documentary, which I know was released last month, I believe. And like I mentioned in the intro, you're talking to people like Lou Mangello and Ricky Briganti and JenniLynn Knopp and a lot of well-known people that have now live in Orlando. So what interested you in talking to this group that is so involved in the Disney community?
Well, when I first kind of, I'll just go back a little bit and say that, when I first kind of got into, trying to do kind of creative visual types of things, it started with my time-lapse video that I did several years ago, back in 2014, the day in the life of Walt Disney World. And when I had kind of put that out there and saw what kind of response it gotten, I immediately knew that I had to do something a little bit more in depth. I had been following Ricky Briganti on Inside the Magic for a while. And, I've been listening to his podcast like, many have. And I noticed that there was a guy by the name of Big Fat Panda who was putting up videos on Ricky's site. He was doing, all sorts of kind of sneak peeks on this and that. And, I originally reached out to Ricky, and then I reached out to Panda, and got to talking with Panda really initially. Ricky, he was a tough guy to get a hold of, but Panda got back to me right away, and I thought, what a great group of people. And then I had thought, Lou Mangello would also be a good addition to this because Lou has been, in that whole space for quite some time. And I sent out an email to all three of them and had said, hey, here's my idea. I really want to kind of do a documentary on, and it initially started on what is the big attraction to come down to Disney to be a full-time kind of resident of Florida. Specifically the folks who were down there to be close to the Disney parks. And then it kind of evolved into, wow, there's this kind of whole community of bloggers and podcasters. And I thought that was really cool. And as I started to kind of get to know everybody, it evolved into not only a story about, the people who have made a professional career out of being Disney fans, but also kind of exploring what is that lure, right? Like, what is that Disney magic and what is the attraction that brings people down here? There is such an enormously dedicated community of people who are just very kind of attached to the whole Disney brand and everything that Disney does. And I just thought that was really interesting. So Panda really was kind of the guy who helped introduce me formally to everybody. He was the kind of the first one who bought into the idea, and then everything else just kind of fell into place.
Well, awesome. Yeah, and I'm familiar with, especially with Ricky, where I was listening to Inside the Magic around the beginning, and Lou and his early podcast, and that for me as an adult kind of got me really back into Disney World about 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
they were an easy draw for me. And it's interesting too, just kind of on a related note, like when I heard about your movie, I thought, oh, it's going to be more, you're going to sit down with each person, talk to Lou about his story and Ricky, and you do that in the movie. But like you mentioned, what I found interesting is kind of how it ended up being almost more about just everyone and how well they got along in the community. So what is it about, in your opinion, what is it about? Because I still feel like I'm parts of various fan communities on things, but what's about Disney or Disney World even that draws people? Because it seems different with Disney. What do you think is so the allure that you describe?
I mean, that's a great question. I think that Disney has been, an entity, for lack of a better term, that has always had their bar way, way high, much higher than everyone else. And I think that in a nutshell is probably the key factor that separates Disney from everything. When Walt Disney started, making animated shorts and then eventually evolving into full-length features, and then ultimately, doing Disneyland, it was, each kind of step along the way was something brand new, something unique, something that no one has ever done. And now when we look at Disney, it is truly an American icon. It is something that is very, very American, despite the fact that it is all around the world right now. But I think people embrace that. And I think that the Disney community embraces it so much so because it's part of our childhood. It's part of where we grew up and how we grew up and the memories that we have. And when we kind of, go through the parks and talk about what is the Disney magic and talk to each other about why are we all kind of drawn here, it all goes back to those memories, whether it be memories as a kid or memories of, as an adult with your kids. It all comes back to memories. And Disney is just so good at tugging on your heartstrings. They know exactly the buttons to push, and they do it in a way that holds the bar much higher than everybody else. I mean, you come to these parks and the service is just top notch. The people are happy. The whole energy and the vibe of being in these parks is just so positive. And you can, I mean, I talk to people just randomly all the time, and they're just so excited to be here. People who come here on their vacation, maybe one time in a lifetime. They might be saving their money for 2 years to come here with their family, and everything has to be perfect. And Disney understands that, and they deliver on that. And I think that is what the attraction is. So I had felt what better story? Because I'm a big Disney fan, like many of us. What better story to tell than the story of what brings us all together here in the Disney community? And I think it's that fellowship, that community of people that makes it so special.
Right. And especially now in the age of the internet, because even when I was a kid, my parents took me, but it wasn't, I mean, it was still, there wasn't like, I would, growing up, would look for information and you had guidebooks and whatnot. But now through the internet and podcasts and blogs, people can connect. And there's people that have barely ever met that are, like Lou Mangello, for example, has all the people, like he mentioned when he first did his live show in the movie, and all these people that think of him as like their friend that have never met the guy, and it's just this odd community is kind of built up in that way, it seems like. So in terms of the production, I'm curious, like I know you had everyone down there, and I think in the movie you mentioned it was about a week. How much time did you spend with the group kind of shooting in the parks?
Well, I came down and I shot formal interviews of everyone, and that was kind of my way of first putting together a trailer of what my idea was. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew that because what we did was we ended up raising some money through a Kickstarter campaign, which everyone, people in the Disney community, were so excited about. Look, we just want to see something online or on Netflix or somewhere that we can kind of feel that feeling of being in the parks. And that's what I wanted to convey. So I initially came down and filmed a series of interviews with Panda and Ricky and Lou and JenniLynn. And we did these interviews, and I put a really kind of fun trailer together to say, hey, look, here's my idea of what I want to do. Let's see if we can kind of gather people together and raise some money so that we can have the funds to be able to get a professional type of production, because there's a lot of money that could go into something like this. We did this very cost effective. We just used the funds that we raised on the Kickstarter, which were close to $10,000, which I'm sure as you might imagine, doing a movie production is not a lot of money, but we made it work.
Right.
And we made it work. And then when I came back down again a few months later, then I had a camera guy with me, and we kind of followed everybody around in the parks. And to me, that was really the magical part. Is you've got these interviews that kind of outline how each of these folks got started and what attracted them to come down here and kind of leave their regular job and start a career down in as a blogger or a podcaster or whatever, just to be close to Disney. But though that was kind of the foundation of the story, but I feel like the fun part was really kind of following everybody through the parks and just seeing how they got recognized by their fans, by their friends, by the people who follow their shows and listen to their podcasts. And there was so much of that. And it was just kind of a general positive vibe of, hey, this is what we do. We just kind of walk through the parks, and we're excited to see when a new attraction's opened, and we see our fans, and there's a Periscope war where Lou and Panda are kind of competing in a fun way as to who can get more Periscope followers. And it's a lot of that. And Lou gets recognized, and JenniLynn gets recognized, and Panda gets recognized, and we capture all that. And you can just see how thankful the people are. And JenniLynn puts it perfectly. She talks a lot about how what the whole point of what they're doing is to give people who can't come to the parks, who are just kind of in the middle of somewhere other than Orlando or close to the Disney parks, to give them a taste of the parks while they're at home, while they're at work, while they're doing their daily life. And that's what these folks do. They give them that feeling of being close to the parks. It's really amazing to see how really appreciative their fans and listeners and followers are of what they do, because how else would you know what's happening? Before the internet, you wouldn't know. You'd rely on Disney doing an advertisement or something, but this way you get a real inside scoop. You almost so much that you feel like you're there. And like you, Dan, I started listening to the Inside the Magic podcast, as did John, Panda, and many others. we listened to that podcast. It gave us a taste of the parks. It made us feel like we were there and just excited us to want to come down here to the parks that much more.
Right. And I think that's the description you gave about the service they're providing. I mean, we saw it. The Frozen thing today. I mean, I'm sitting here in Missouri and it's like been open for 2 hours and I'm able to pull up someone took like a professionally shot video or something. And it's that connection. And then even like on your movie, I mean, you see just watching the film, you're seeing like people at the dance party in Tomorrowland or the fireworks, like watching illuminations, and that's pretty cool. So I wonder too. I was really intrigued by watching how each of the people you mentioned, like JenniLynn and Lou and Panda, how they handled kind of when they met someone who was kind of nervous in the parks. Did that happen like really often while you were shooting? Was that like a common
Yeah.
thing where they just kept getting stopped?
Well, I mean, it's not like it happened every 10 minutes, but it happened a lot. A lot, particularly with Panda, more so than anybody. Lou got recognized a few times, JenniLynn got recognized a few times, and Panda got recognized, half a dozen times. A lot of people will say, well, how did you guys stage that? It's like, no, we didn't stage it at all. It just happened. And that was what I was crossing my fingers because, Panda would say to me, I get stopped in the parks all the time by fans see me, they want to take a picture with me. He said, "Watch when we're filming the documentary, nobody will notice me, and I won't get stopped at all." But he got stopped so many times just by fans who were just so thankful, that he does what he does. He puts these videos out there that gives people a flavor. People like yourself who are out there in Missouri gives them a flavor of what it is, what it feels like, right? Without
Mhm.
actually having to be here. I mean, obviously, there's nothing like being here, but it was really awesome for me to see how excited Panda was, and Lou and JenniLynn, how excited they were to be, to see people that recognize them, that appreciated what they did. It's like a validation for them. It's a reminder to say, you're on the right path. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it's obvious because these people are so happy to have you doing what you're doing.
Right. And while you were shooting, I mean, you mentioned, hoping that would happen and all that. Were there any challenges in terms of shooting in the parks, either from Disney or from just logistically that you had to deal with?
No, not really. I mean, we kept things very, very bare bones. We didn't bring in a big We did everything, exactly within Disney guidelines. We didn't have big camera gear. We just used a DSLR camera, very good DSLR camera on a monopod. And, we just had, people who, kind of knew what they were doing. And we didn't get in anybody's way. We were very careful not to want to disrupt anybody's vacation. And it was really just kind of following these guys around, talking about what they do, and illustrating what they do and what it's like to be with them in the parks. And I think that we kind of we accomplished that, to show what is it like. I wanted to have that flavor of what does it feel like to be in the Disney parks. And a lot of what I like to do is support what we were doing, with video footage and stuff, with some of the time lapse stuff that I shot and some of the gorgeous scenic, imagery that I shot. I really wanted to bring the beauty of the Disney parks to life to people on the big screen, and I think we did.
Right. Yeah. And I love the way that, you start and finish kind of with longer time lapse footage because it basically you have the people in the main part of the film talking about what's so great about Disney and everything, and then you're showing it basically in the same way,
Right.
like through that. Because it's easy sometimes to forget going on a trip. Sometimes you can just get so involved in oh, I have this fast pass or this going, or if you have kids, you're trying to
Right.
corral them, just like sitting back and watching just something simple like the monorail going by and
Right. I
stuff,
mean,
is
like anyone who's been here, when you're walking through the parks, you will constantly, your eye will be drawn to things that you just feel are really cool to look at, even if it's just a fleeting glimpse. And I wanted to take those fleeting glimpses and kind of really magnify those things, to really bring attention to those things, like the monorail and like beautiful sunsets that happen that you might stop and take a picture and then move on. But I really wanted to take those moments and really bring those up to the front and say, we've got this great story with these bloggers and these podcasters and these people who are very passionate about being down in Disney, but how can we support all these wonderful things that they're saying? And I felt what a great way to support it through beautiful imagery and time lapse, kind of cinematic, beautiful time lapse footage, and that's what I think we did.
Well, great. No, I think it worked out well. And I also want to mention that you have an interview with Ron Schneider, who was the original Dreamfinder and is actually going to be starring as Walt Disney's head
Yeah.
in a movie that's being produced right now, which I think was a very good casting, I think.
Oh, it's going to be
But what
great.
was it like to talk to him? What was, I mean, because
Well,
his is kind of separate in a way, but it connects to the movie, I
yeah. Well,
think.
he kind of he's like the sanity behind all the madness, right? Ron is just a great way to kind of corral everybody in and add some real texture to what everyone has been talking about. The way he talks about why do we keep going on the Haunted Mansion 100 times, over the course of our lifetime? Why do we wait in line for this attraction that we've been on so many times? And again, it goes back to the memories and the. I think Ron says it's the miracle of the first time. We want to recreate that miracle of the first time, and it was just awesome talking to Ron. He's really just an incredible person who is truly passionate about some of the things that he's done and the things that he's doing in the future. I was really excited to hear that he was going to play Walt's head. I can't imagine what that's going to be like, but I know it's going to be great. He's a very talented actor. He's got so many different skill sets, but having Ron, kind of really talk about a little bit more about the history and about passion that he has, what got him started. He did stuff with Wally Bogue. That was his dream. Everybody has their own individual dream. That was Ron's dream. Myself, I never expected. I live down here in Florida now. Right upon the release of Dreamfinders, I ended up moving down here to Celebration. So I'm now a resident of Celebration, but I never expected that. When I started this thing, I mean, I'd always kind of dreamed of living down here. Get away from those New York winters. Uh, but I had never really expected that that was how this was going to all end up. And, here I sit in Hollywood Studios. I've got my camera tonight and my tripod, and I'm going to shoot the Star Wars fireworks. That's the reason I'm here tonight. I just ordered myself a kid's chicken nuggets because I wasn't that hungry. They gave me extra fries, and I'm sitting here talking to you, and it's just that whole. It's little things like that that make you feel. You just make you feel how fortunate you are to be here, and and how much I want to kind of put it out there so that others can feel, even those who can't be here right now. And that's kind of the whole motif for everyone. We're trying to give folks a piece of the Disney magic for those who can't be down here all the time, and I think that in a nutshell, that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, definitely. And so I know you moved down there. Was it really based on the experience of shooting this film? I mean, I'm sure it'd been I mean, almost any really passionate Disney fan has had that thought like, oh, it'd be amazing to move and be near the parks. But was it, I mean, you mentioned it's very recent. What really drove you to do that?
Well, again, always kind of dreaming of coming down here. I was spending all my vacations down here. I've been an annual pass holder for the last 4 or 5 years, and I really wanted to just try to make a change in my life. And the stars were perfectly aligned. My job, I was very unhappy commuting in and out of New York City, and I had an opportunity to get out of that, and I did. And I wanted to, and I initially started looking again for a gig in New York, And it just dawned upon me one day that I really don't want to be here in New York anymore. Here's an opportunity for me. This is, less than a month before the release of Dreamfinders. I thought, I could easily move to Celebration, kind of reestablish myself down there, because my career kind of is hinged upon web design and web development, website design and development, which is where my kind of core career began, and it kind of evolved into film and video and time lapse. So I thought, what a great opportunity. Orlando is a very happening area. There's a lot of technology down here, a lot of action, and I'm down here now, and I'm busy. My creative side has never been more vibrant, and I don't for a second look back. And I say to people who are thinking about doing that, you don't want to be what's the word? You want to make sure that it's the right thing for you. I didn't do this frivolously. I It was just, I had been thinking about it for such a long time, and as I said, the stars were aligned, and it happened to be the right time. My daughter is in college. She just finished an internship down here on the with the Disney College program. So that was another kind of motivator for me. My daughter was already down here. I thought this is a perfect opportunity, and I'm just so happy to be here. I can't imagine going back and working in. I mean, no offense to anybody who lives or works in New York City. I lived there my whole life, but I'm down here now, and I'm so happy I made the move.
Well, great. Yeah, and I expect that that's quite a change, but it sounds like it's a great setup. Have you one more question on this? Have you noticed any real difference in how you approach the parks, even in a few months, as a local rather than as a tourist?
Yeah, well, that's an awesome question. It's been very difficult for me to get out of being in vacation mode. I feel like I have to be in the parks all the time, which is ridiculous. But I love to be here. You know what it is? It's the energy of this place. There's no place like it. Even New York City has, very big energy, but the way people kind of are, their guards are down here, and they are, very easy to talk to. They come up to you. They want to talk to you. They want to get to know you. So that's something that I'm really attracted to. I love when I'm shooting photography or shooting time lapse. People will just come up to me and just start talking, just because I have a tripod set up. So it's tough getting out of vacation mode. I've probably only not been in the parks in the last couple of months. I've probably only not been in there maybe half a dozen, 6, 7 times. Um,
Wow.
it's sometimes I wonder, why do I have to come down here all the time? I just love being here. It doesn't get old for me. It really doesn't. There's so much to do. There's every time you come down here, you do something different. You can find something different to do. You don't always have to go on a ride. Sometimes it's just cool to hang out and have a cup of coffee and just chill out. Talk to people, or just appreciate the beautiful weather. It's just a great place to be, and I just love to be down here. So I don't think I'm going to get burnt out. I think as long as I spread myself out. My daughter is down here now. She's visiting for the next couple of weeks. So her and I went into Magic Kingdom last night, and we just chilled out. We just kind of went on a couple of rides and just enjoyed walking through the parks together. And that's what it's all about.
No, that's a great luxury, especially with your daughter there, but in general, just to have to kind of not feel this pressure to have to see 12 rides or 15 rides or whatever in a day, that you can just kind of enjoy the ambiance of the parks. So since you're down there, do you have any plans for future projects you might do connected to Disney or the parks?
I am presently working on a a really amazing project that I can't really talk too much about right now, but I'll say this. It's going to be much different than Dreamfinders. It is Disney based, meaning it's going to be a real kind of focus on Disney history, more so than anything. And I'm going to be traveling to California soon, to kind of get things started. But it's going to be a very exciting project, and I'm also working on another absolutely stunning time-lapse piece that I'm going to be putting out there very soon. Some of the most epic time-lapse that I've ever done in my life that really brings the beauty of the parks to life. So I've got a couple of really very, very cool things on the horizon that I'm very excited to share with everyone, and it's coming soon.
Well, excellent. Well, that when that secret project comes out, I'll definitely want to talk with you more about it. But this has been awesome. I could have easily talked to you for a lot longer. But what do you think? If somebody wants to see Dreamfinders or just follow your projects, what's the best place for them to go online?
Well, they can go to dreamfindersmovie.com, which is the official website, dreamfindersmovie.com. And they can also visit me at silverpinstudios.com, which is kind of shows some of the other stuff that I work on. Besides the Disney stuff, I worked on something that's still kind of festering, but a documentary on commuting into New York City from a commuter standpoint. And that was something that I started that I'm still going to be kind of pursuing. But so this way you can kind of get an overview of some of my other interests. But Disney certainly being my big interest. There's so much to see. There's so much to do here, and I think that there's a lot of folks who don't really understand. You've got the core Disney fan base, but there's a lot of people who don't really understand what this place has to offer. Walt Disney, when he did this, it was very important to him to create a place of community, and I'm trying to bring that to light. What is that place of community? And it's not just a place for kids. Disney is a place for everyone, for families, for couples, for seniors, for singles. It's just a great place to kind of find who you are and what you like to do. So that's a little bit about what I'm about and what I hope to bring and share with everyone in the next days, weeks, and years to come.
Well, great. Well, I definitely get that came through in Dreamfinders, and I really enjoyed the movie and definitely highly recommend it. And Tony, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Dan, it was awesome. I really appreciate you having me, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Great, and now I can be jealous of you as you get to go enjoy the Hollywood studios.
I'm going on Rock and Roller Coaster. My fast pass is in about 5 minutes, so I'll be thinking about you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Tony, and have a great day.
Take care, Dan.
Okay, well, that was a really great conversation with Tony. I'm glad that he was able to come on. And I'm really looking forward to what Tony does in the future. His time-lapse videos of Disney World are just amazing. I can't imagine what goes into putting them together. And if you want to know what I'm doing, you can go to tomorrowsociety.com. I write blog posts regularly about theme parks and history and, of course, Disney. And I'm also doing regular podcasts as much as possible with cool guests like Tony. And if you want to reach out to me with ideas for blogs or just to check in and say how I'm doing, you can email me at dan@tomorrowsociety.com. And the music for the show is composed by Adam Hookey and performed by the Sophisticated Babies. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you all again soon.